Good day. Today we're going to be covering what to look for when you're conducting due diligence on tenants that have applied for rental apartments. The reason that I'm covering this topic today is because some recent horror stories I've heard because of the situation with the Fair Housing Act that the Liberal government of Ontario enacted or passed in May of 2017, which has made it more onerous and expensive for landlords to deal with professional tenants, which are tenants that basically scam landlords and play the system and which ends up costing landlords a lot of money. There's ways to weed those individuals out, and I'm going to be talking about that today. Before I get started, I highly suggest that you use someone with a lot of experience and expertise when you conduct due diligence in renting out your apartment. The more that you do of these, the more you're able to recognize individuals and know what to look for. It's always good to have a third person that's unemotional about your unit to do that work for you. I highly recommend it. However, if you are going to do it yourself, then there's four documents you should obtain. The first one is the application, the actual rental application. You can get standard ones online. The second piece of information that you want is a credit bureau or credit report complete with the credit score. The applicants can do this themselves through Equifax.com or a comparable service. The third item that you want is a letter of employment from the employer of the applicant, which basically states how long they've been working there, when they started, their position, how much they get paid. Those are the three pieces of information that is usually included in that document. The fourth one is basically a document that they can download online from the CRA. It's called an NOA, or a Notice of Assessment. It's a document that the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, sends back to the taxpayer once their tax return has been reviewed by the CRA. That you should obtain 2 years of that to give you a picture of how stable their income is. Those four documents is what you want to review and go through in detail. The application is very important. You'll find that over 90%, from my experience, over 90% of all applicants will either lie or provide partial disclosure of their situation. So you need to understand that how this will affect you. Some of the areas that you should look out for are smokers, drug users, because these are things that can affect other tenants. That can cause fire, that can extra wear and tear on the property. Pets. If pets is an issue for you, people will lie about having pets. Not as much as smoking and the other items. Criminal records. I'm not overly concerned about criminal records because that's their past. I'm more concerned about how they're behaving now and whether there's a culture there that you may not want to get involved with. So those are other items that you might want to look at. Are they in a lifestyle that perhaps can provide additional risks to you and those that are nearby? So according to the law, there's certain questions you cannot ask and certain decisions that you cannot make based on preferences and choices of the tenant. However, if you are looking at the tenant and want to make sure that they fit into your apartment, you can get certain information to make sure that they are not problematic types of tenants. And by what I mean by problematic is the things you're looking for. You want individuals that will take care of the apartment, that will keep it clean, that won't pile stuff up so that the actual design of the unit will not function properly. For example, if they pile boxes up on the vents, you can create a situation where the circulation is not proper, the heat's not proper. In the summertime, you have buildup of moisture, condensation in the wintertime, black mold will come about, rot of the within the walls, a number of issues, fire hazards, health hazards, things like that. You want to be careful about. Hoarding's another item you want to keep an eye on. It's a big one because once people start hoarding, they have a history of it. It's hard to break the habit. So, so those are the types of things that you want to keep a lookout for. The other thing is when I refer to lifestyle, one of the things I'm referring to is, do they play loud music late at night? Do they have parties where people show up who basically are strangers to the neighbors and start being, let's just say, inconsiderate, if not disrespectful? So you want to keep an eye on that. In some neighborhoods, if your rental unit is an upscale neighborhood, neighbors will get upset if they see a lot of people kind of snooping around their property, worried that these people may be staking them out or getting ideas about their property. This is one of the concerns with short-term rentals, with Airbnb, that is still not addressed. But people that live near Airbnbs are always concerned that individuals that come in are coming in to stake out their homes. So, which is one of the dangers of having an Airbnb in the neighborhood. So these are some of the things that you want to consider when you're going through the application. Do they take care of the place? Will they pay on time without you having to go after them? So I've had experiences with tenants would be 3, 4, 5 months behind in rent, and this going on for 2 years. And at one point, you're going to have to just, it's one thing to be nice, but at one point you have to realize that the headaches they cause you, and the cost if you're using a property manager, but the extra costs and the stress for you to be able to have somebody that's not paying on time for whatever reason is ridiculous. You don't need that. So better find out up front if there are types of individuals that will pay their obligations on time, or there are types of individuals that you have to chase and be the squeakiest wheel before they start paying their rent. So the credit bureau is a good way to track that. So the things you're looking for in review again are, will they take care of the place? Will they pay the rent? And are they going to destroy anything or cause problems with neighbors? You don't want to have to deal with the city and neighbors and other legal matters like that. Those are the 3 top things that you want to be careful about. Now, professional tenants fit into the second category. They'll try and find ways not to pay rent. And they always try to blame you for one thing or another, to make it seem like you're not fulfilling your part of the contract. Either there's something wrong with something to do in the unit, the smoke detector's not working. It could be a number of things. There's mold there. Well, I've seen situations where the tenants intentionally created a problem with the airflow and the moisture, and then said there was a problem with the unit, so they didn't have to pay rent. I've seen this happen. So you have to be careful when it comes to things like that. I recommend that after you find a tenant, that you actually go in with periodic property inspections. I use a form, and I tick off items in the form in terms of, is the smoke detector, the carbon monoxide detector working properly? Or is the ventilation system clear and free? Or is there anything blocking anything? Is there any hazard? Are the faucets working? So I do an inspection to do it. And in some cases, I've done it as much as monthly with tenants that are new. But quarterly or semi-annually is fine. I do that so that it's clear the record that's happening in that place, so they can't come back and give you problems for that. So how do you conduct the diligence on the actual 4 items that I talked about originally? The first one with the application, they put in there who's going to be living there. Very important. If they telling you they're going to be there alone, and you're making a decision based among several applicants, one may have 6 people in the family, one may be alone. If you're making a decision to go with the one individual because you feel it has less wear and tear in the house, there'll be less problems with that individual, then, and it's your prerogative, then you have to make sure that they're not actually planning to bring their family from overseas or have their buddies move in with them, or even use it for Airbnb. So that's the other problem that I'm seeing, is a lot of people are trying to secure rental properties so they can use them for Airbnb. So you wanna delve into that, and the way you look into that is you basically call the previous landlord that's on the application, and you ask them, if they were the tenant there and if they had other people living with them. So that's one of the things that some individuals do to verify that. Social media. Check their Facebook and other social media accounts to see if they have pictures of people they're living with. Also gives you a good idea of the lifestyle they're living. Gives you an idea of the mentality of that person as well. Are they the types of individual that are antagonistic? Do they look for problems? Do they blame other people for stuff that they should be responsible for? These are things that show up in social media through some of their postings, through Twitter and Facebook, two of the best instruments. Instagram, good to see some of how they spent their time with the pictures they take. So that's what I would do with the diligence on the application. The financial information on there that they're declaring, you're going to compare that to the notice of assessment. I mean, if they're saying they're making 100,000 and their notice of assessment is saying they're making 25,000, then you're going to need to get clarity from them in terms of why that discrepancies are. Sometimes they could be declaring gross in their own business. By the time they flow through their expenses, their net income could be 25 grand. And then the question becomes, how do you know that they're going to pay the expenses? So that's the other item on there. Make sure you get that clear. Employment, again, you go to the employment letter, find out how long they've been working there. You pick up the phone, you call the HR person or their senior manager that gave you the information for, and you find out how long they've been. You find out, first of all, did they write this letter, and just to confirm the information on the letter. And sometimes they actually will contribute additional information, and you could tell by the way that they speak to you if they have hesitations or breaks in discussion, if they're being overly silent, that there may be other issues at hand. So the letter of employment doesn't actually say that they will continue to be employed. It only says that they've been employed and what their position is now and how much they're getting paid. So important to realize that there's nothing to stop them from getting fired. And maybe one of the reasons they're moving is they're downsizing in anticipation of being fired. Then you want to be aware of that, because if they're going to get fired, they could be without work, and how are they going to pay the rent? The credit bureau, the first document, the second document on the list, the credit report and score, very important. The score is basically the credit bureau's way of telling you how good the applicant is as far as their credit history and credit worthiness goes. So if their score is 800 or higher, fantastic. 730 or higher, I believe you're falling the top third of all applicants. Once you get below 650, I would get really concerned. I don't, generally the people that I rent to are a minimum of 730. Because there's so many applicants now, you can get 730, 800 scores easily with good employment. If they're less than that, then you have to take a look at the credit bureau, find out why they're being scored low. Is it because they've moved a lot, changed jobs a lot? Is there some creditor problems somewhere on the list? They've missed some payments. What is it? Maybe they've had a lot of credit applications in the last month or two. Find out what's going on. It also gives you an idea of things that may be going on in their life. If they're going through a divorce or separation, that could have something to do with it. So you need to find out whatever it is. I'm not saying write them off. I'm just saying be aware of the situation, because then you can help manage it. But if they don't tell you the whole story and they're hiding information, that's going to be a clue as to what kind of relationship to expect with that tenant. So I give extra points when someone's upfront with me, says, look, my credit score is not high, this is why. And I've been going through a tough time. This move is part of me starting over in life, or part of me preparing for this transition. I only plan to be there for 2 years. I eventually plan to do this. And I've had that happen. I put one lady in a 2-year lease. She was upfront about it. She was planning to eventually retire into the country and buy a home. She had sold her home, and I spoke to the homeowner about this, and he was okay with it because the 2 years is a fair lease term. And she's been there 4 years now. She's in her 4th year. So she's just so happy with the place, and she's realized the rents have skyrocketed around her. Great unit, great lifestyle. She feels comfortable and safe there. So the story is important. It helps the landlord manage the asset. Helps you manage the asset, because if you know how long your tenant's going to be there, then you can work around that. If you're planning to sell your rental property anytime soon, then don't go with a 3-year term. Do a 1 year, and then make sure you actually sign another 1-year term after that one's done, or less, depending on what you're looking for. If it's a long-term asset and it doesn't matter to you, then yes, you can go for a 3-year term. I've done 3-year terms. I actually did a 3-year term with a man in his 80s for another one of my clients. He came in with a proposal where he wanted a little bit of a break, but he was willing to sign a 3-year. I discussed it with the owner, and he was happy because it gave him stability. He didn't have to want to look for a new tenant. And plus, the gentleman was a good gentleman, had lived in the area for a long time. And 80-year-old people that are older are having a tough time finding rental accommodation for some reason. They have certain requirements. Anyway, the point is that it worked out well, and because he was upfront about it, it gave the homeowner, you, the opportunity to plan around it, because this is an investment for you that involves cash flow and asset allocation, and also you can borrow against the asset, but there's decisions that you are restricted in making if you have a tenant in there whose plan is divergent from what you plan to do with it. And with the Fair Housing Act that the Liberal government of Ontario passed in May of 2017, it restricts what you can do by increasing the costs of you having to deal with things like this. So important that you know the story and their lifestyle, and it has a history. The Credit Bureau gives you a history of what's happened in their lives, so you know how reliable they are to pay. Notice of assessment, well, that's plain and simple. You take a look at it, gives you the gross, their net. Now you know the money they have to play with at the end of the year. So the CRA notice of assessment. And the final document is we talked about Credit Bureau, notice assessment, letter of employment, and the application. That's it. So that's basically how you conduct the due diligence on the documents. Now, one more thing. One of the most important things you can do is look at the applicant in DI and spend time with them and just have some small talk and talk to them about the things they like in the neighborhood, why they chose that neighborhood, why they like that apartment unit. Don't treat it like a commodity. Every apartment, unless you're in a condominium, every apartment is unique. So find out what attracts that individual to that apartment. If they say it's the price, that's a red flag. I mean, if they treat it like a commodity, chances are they're gonna treat the whole thing like a commodity, and as soon as a better deal comes along, they'll leave. Second thing is what they tell you when they walk in, where their eye goes, and the comments they make about the apartment will tell you how happy they will be with the apartment after. Some of the things that I look for is, what are they asking for when they come into the apartment? Some people ask to paint. Are they gonna renovate? Well, no, they're not. If they're gonna renovate, they wouldn't be showing you the unit before. So the fact that they're not happy with it, they're hoping to renovate, and probably expecting to be able to get a renovated apartment, a newly renovated apartment, for the same price, kind of tells you they're not really the type of tenant that you may want in there. They're either not in touch with reality, or they just don't like the unit. The other thing I come across are individuals that actually make comments like, "Oh, that's against the law." So I had one lady complain that there was a stroller outside the door of one of the units. Well, she says, "Oh, it's illegal to have it there." Well, it's contrary to the fire code to block door access. That stroller was in front of an empty unit whose occupant had left with the child to go for a walk. So it wasn't blocking anybody else. But the fact that she actually mentioned that already tells me that she's looking for problems. She's not looking for what's good about this unit. She's looking for what's wrong with this unit. So whether it was right or wrong that unit was blocking that way is irrelevant in my mind. What's relevant is where her thought is focused. Another person made a comment about the Landlord and Tenant Act. And it's like, why are you even talking about the Act? The Act is there to basically regulate when there's a disagreement or something, make sure certain things are being done. Why are you even referring to it on your first visit to a property? So that tells me that they've had some familiar dealings with the tribunal and the Act, and they're probably going to be more eager to leverage the act and the tribunal as a result of that. On the other hand, I've had tenants who basically, when there's an issue, the last thing on their mind is, should they call the city or call whoever? They call the property manager or the landlord and ask if they can be dealt with. I've had one lady, on the other hand, who, when she was given notice, said, "Oh, you have to go through the tribunal, the Landlord and Tenant Act." And it was ridiculous because everything was being done according to the act, and she was given lots of leniency and shown a lot of flexibility, but that was her immediate response. And it's individuals like that that really, it's unfortunate that make it, they don't make it pleasing to have to try and rent out properties, but these individuals exist. And they exist because somehow they have this sense of entitlement that their rights are above yours when it comes to your rental property. But if you manage the property in a proper way, then really they don't have anything to stand on, and there should be no reason for them to even think about filing a complaint or arguing or disputing. Now, having said that, professional tenants, they may, okay, I'm not sure how many are out there, but they may try to create a situation beyond their control to put them in a position where they don't have to pay rent. So again, that's why it's so important to call previous tenants, to do a Google search on them, make sure that that's not the case that's happening with you. You don't want a professional tenant in there because it could be disastrous. I know this is an extreme example. The first time I came across the whole concept of a professional tenant was in a movie, I believe it was called Pacific Heights. You might want to check that movie out. It's horrible what happened into an extreme depiction of what could happen when you have that kind of legislation in place. And really, there's nothing on your side to help you to help you avoid the cost of having to deal with someone like that. So you want to make sure that you avoid it before it happens. This due diligence that I presented to you is going to help you with that. So again, look the tenant in the eye, get a good sense of the type of character they are, see how they handle themselves, the kind of personality. Very, very important. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with them and that they're able to communicate with you openly, effectively, and genuinely and honestly. Because if they're not, if they're hiding things and being quiet and you're just getting that sense that something's not right, trust your intuition, because in a lot of cases it will cost you a lot if you don't trust your intuition. Just make sure you do the diligence, verify as much as you can, do a lot of research. It takes me between 1 to 4 hours to research a final applicant in terms of due diligence. The original review is done quickly. If they have the 4 documents, probably in half an hour you go through all that 4. But if you want to make the phone calls and then do the research online and the rest of it, you're looking between 1 and 4 hours, depending on how easily information is available. I hope this has helped. If you want help with renting out your unit, feel free to contact me. My information is at the bottom. You can email me or you can find me anywhere in social media. If you want to reach me directly, you can call me at 416-564-0245. If you already have a property and need help managing it, give me a call. I'll help you with that as well. Or if you're looking for tenants, good quality tenants, I have some great references that will explain to you how I operate and how good a job I do. And it'll give you peace of mind. And there's no reason why you have to go through all that effort when it will cost you very little to get a professional to do it for you. I hope this helps, and good luck. Good luck in finding that great tenant for your investment property. Bye now.